Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of all of us at Pur-Logic Solutions, I want to thank you for joining us today as part of our Get More from Your Sage software webinar series. We are recording today's session. So for both of those of us who were able to attend and for those who registered but were unable to attend, we will send out the recording as soon as we receive it. I'm going to send it over to our host now, George from TrueSky.
Okay, well, thank you for joining. What I thought today is to give you guys a high-level overview of our product and a little bit of background on it. So just here's just a quick agenda. Why do you need a budgeting tool? Why TrueSky? Kind of what the pillars are around how we built our product. What can we do? Demo and kind of an overview and some next steps. Okay, if you have any questions, just feel free to I guess put them in the chat or we can answer them after the session. So first of all, why do we need an application? Most people out there using Excel for budgeting, and although Excel is a great tool, it's very flexible. You can model any process. It's got a great calculation engine, great presentation layer, and pretty well everybody out there knows how to use Excel. Unfortunately, it's not great for budgeting. It works well in a small environment when you've got, a couple of people using it. But once you get more than, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 people involved in the budgeting process, it becomes really cumbersome. And some of the reasons are, first of all, it's not a database. So there's a lot of spreadsheets floating around. There's a lot of manual work. There's no workflow. There's no audit trails. There's no version control. So it's just, it's a big mess, kind of consolidating everything, making sure everybody's got the right numbers, making sure, you've got the latest versions and all that kind of stuff. And really at the end of the day, even just standalone spreadsheets have a lot of errors. 90% of all spreadsheets out there have errors in them. Some of them are very significant. Some of them get reported. And a lot of times it's just a simple, copy and paste or putting in a wrong formula or a minus sign instead of a plus sign. So, a lot of time people, when they're doing the budgeting process, they spend most of their time troubleshooting spreadsheets as opposed to actually focusing on the budgeting process. So why TrueSky? So the reason, TrueSky was built was really to help clients focus on the strategy and analysis of the budgeting process, as opposed to what we call the drudgery of managing the budgeting side of things, which is really, all of the manual and admin effort that's required, instead of really spending your time on analyzing and making sure that your budget is useful and helpful. So with that, we have 3 users in mind. So first of all, we have our contributors. And for them, we want to make it as easy as possible to get in and out of the budgeting process. Most people don't love budgeting, so the easier we make it for them to get in and out, the better. For the finance team, we wanted to make sure that we minimize administration, increase the quality of the numbers, and really allow them to take over the whole budgeting process from beginning to end. So they can manage everything, create new budgets, create new reports, create new templates, and so forth. And ultimately for the decision makers, wanted to make sure we provide them with the right information to make, the best business decisions, to ultimately reduce the risk and really avoid any surprises. So they kind of know they're guiding the ship in the right direction and to make sure that, they're following what they're supposed to be doing. So with that, we have 3 pillars when we built the product. The first one was we wanted to leverage Excel. As I mentioned before, Excel is a great tool, not perfect for budgeting, but we wanted to leverage all of the strengths of Excel. The fact that people know how to use it, which gives us, much quicker, rapid adoption. There's minimal training. We try and basically replicate kind of the processes that you're using or make them as close as possible. So when you roll this out, it's very, very easy for people to take over. But we also wanted to take advantage of all the functionality of Excel, the calculation engine, the ability to pretty well model any process, the ease of use, the flexibility. And then we added a whole bunch of enhancements to really turn Excel into an enterprise budgeting tool. So the next pillar was for us to empower the finance group. And for the finance group, we wanted to make sure that everything is centralized. We didn't want to have spreadsheets floating around. So in our world, there's no spreadsheets floating around. We use Excel as a user interface or a user experience, but then after that, we take over and everything goes into a central database. So, we've kind of flipped it upside down just to provide with a lot of control. We want to make sure that you have audit trails, that you have application security, so you can control all the security within the application, that there's no more merging of spreadsheets. Everything is entered into the system and it's real time. And ultimately, we want to provide you with direct integration to multiple data sources, whether that's your Sage 300 system or any other application that you may want to integrate to. If you have a point of sale, distribution, manufacturing system, a CRM, sales system, whatever other applications that you're budgeting or forecasting for. We wanted to make sure that we have integration to that, so that you only need to enter the data once. And ultimately, finance wants to make sure we can, you can promote accountability. And our last pillar was to facilitate knowledge. So we wanted to make this as easy as possible to get more people involved in the budgeting process. The closer people are to the action, the better the numbers. As well, if people are responsible for numbers, you can make them more accountable. So if you can roll out the budget to more people, you're going to get much better information, and you're going to make people more accountable for the numbers. We also want to make sure we capture not just the numbers, but the reason behind the numbers. So if there's a backup document or spreadsheets or some other information that you need, I want to make sure that that's captured in the budgeting process. Wanted to allow people to do a deep dive analysis into the numbers, so they can drill down and see where all the information came from. Ultimately, the goal is to increase accuracy and to provide management or whoever the user is with much better information to make better business decisions. So with that, what can TrueSky do? We can do pretty well anything around budgeting, planning, and forecasting, whether it's financial, operational, compensation, sales and revenue forecasting, expenses, capital expenditures, project costing or revenue costing, production and inventory, as well any structured data capture. So if you need to capture data in a structured format, you could use our application to do that. We're also a reporting, analytics, and dashboarding tool. So we can do all your budgeting, consolidated budgets. We can create presentation quality financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, cash flows. We can do all your budget versus actual reporting and analysis. We can do headcount reporting, FTE reporting. As well, we can also do some dashboarding and KPIs. Okay. So with that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to flip over and jump into the demo. Okay. Can you guys see my Excel now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So as I mentioned, one of our big pillars was to use Excel. And we decided to use Excel, but just as a user interface. So what ends up happening, a user would open up their normal Excel, and then they will go into a tab called TrueSky. When they go to TrueSky, they go to their hub. And the hub is the main place where we basically start to spoon feed users on what they need to do. So from here, we basically start doing assignments for people. So depending on who you are, you're going to have certain assignments. And we also provide them with reports. So myself, I've got some admin tasks. So I've got to do my capital expenditures, some departmental allocations. For my annual budget, I got to do my office expenses and travel expenses. I've got some cash flows, compensation planning, projects, and so forth. And again, all this is specific to a particular user. As well, I've got some reports that were assigned to me. So I've got some dashboards, and I've got some financial statements. Now, another user, when they log in, they may have a complete different set of assignments that were sent to them. And this is all managed by the administrator. So all the user needs to do is open up Excel. They will go to their assignment, and I'm just going to go over here to my annual budget, and I'm going to start my office expenses. As you can see, we can start to control, when the budget begins, when the budget ends. Over here, we've got levels, and our levels are really for workflow. We've got a pretty sophisticated workflow engine in the background that allows us to route data for approval. So in our world, we're not approving the actual templates, we're approving data. So we can kind of route data to different people, and kind of have it, branch out and come back in, or we can just kind of have it go, up on a certain hierarchy. So it's pretty sophisticated workflow engine that's kind of running in the background. So when we open up our template, the first thing that we have is instructions. People usually don't budget, very regularly. What they could be doing it monthly, quarterly, or yearly. So what we do is we provide instructions for every template on how they need to enter their budgets in that template. So in this example, we're going to navigate to a tab called Input. We're going to enter information in the yellow shaded cells. And in this scenario, what I want to increase is over 20% of last year. So you can put in, whatever rules, whatever guidelines, whatever information is going to make it easier for end users to enter the budgets. So I'm just going to go over here to my office expenses. And this is my actual template. Over here, I've got my filters or dimensions. So these are the things that I'm going to be budgeting on for this particular template. So in this scenario, I'm going to be budgeting by location for departments in US dollars. We handle multiple currencies as well, for version 1 of the budget. We handle, I think, 99 versions of a budget. So you can have as many versions of the budget or forecast as you like. So if I open up my departments here, what it does, it will give me a listing of the departments that I have access to. So as an end user, these are the departments that I have access to. If I only had access to 1 or 2, that's all that would show up. Everything that we do is dynamic. So we can create our templates and we create our views and filters and everything else, depending on the template and depending on the user and their security. So in our world, you basically have to create one template and you can roll it out to multiple people. And depending on their security and what they're supposed to see, whether a certain department or division or a branch or a location, they're only going to see information that's relevant to them. So you don't have to create, 10 different templates for 10 different people. The system will automatically generate for them, depending on their security. Okay. If I look at locations, it gives us a different view. This is more of a tree view or a hierarchical view. So here, what this can do, it allows us to kind of group things. So for example, if I want to group, the Seattle office with the Seattle warehouse and the research department, I just click all those 3 and it'll consolidate the data for me. And it'll either put it in 1 column or 3 different columns, depending on how you want to define or design your reports or your input templates. Okay. So we've got a lot of flexibility how we roll this out, how we see information, and kind of how it all gets managed. If you've got a different kind of template or a different scenario, then these filters will be different. So for example, if you're doing compensation, you'll be basically, maybe doing it based on department or employee type or whatever. Okay. So I'm going to go now and I'm going to retrieve my data. So this will actually create my input template for me. And again, everything's dynamic. So this will create whatever GL accounts I have access to. So depending on who you are, you'll only see the accounts or the departments or the information that you have access to. Now, what this has done is generated an Excel spreadsheet for me. So as an end user, I'm in Excel. I've got access to all my Excel functionality. Over here, I've got my budgets, my actuals, my variances. If I expand this out, I've got my 12 periods. If I go further out, in this scenario, I've got a combination of actual budget numbers and actual numbers to give us kind of a projected forecast. And then we've got our variances. Okay. Now, as we mentioned, you can only enter information in the yellow shaded cells. Anything that's in blue is locked. So you've got full control about what users do and where they can enter data. So as an end user, I know I can enter my data in my yellow shaded cells, so I can just start typing into Excel. I've got access to all my Excel functionality, whatever, my drag and drop, copy and paste. If I want to enter a formula, I can just, enter formula, say take this account plus this account, and it does your formula for you. In our world, all we care about is what's in this actual cell, because as soon as we save the number to our database, it'll save it to this lowest common level. So for example, in this scenario, it's going to save that 16,000 into my supplies hardware account for the office budget for 2022, for the Seattle office, for the corporate department for the month of December. Now, once that's in our database, that number is available for anyone to see, to be displayed on other templates, to be displayed on reports, to be used for calculations, and so forth. So that is a big difference between us and Excel, that we're taking all of our numbers, putting it into a database, and we're storing it at the lowest level possible, or the lowest level that you need. And then from there, you can use that for reporting, calculations, other templates, and so forth. Okay. This is kind of a key feature of our system. Now, other things we can do, we give users the ability to play around with their data. A lot of times when you enter data, you want to manipulate it. So in our world, we've entered a whole bunch of numbers here. I may want to change some of them. I like my numbers, but they're too high or too low. So I want to change them either by an even amount or a percentage or a value. So I'm going to say, you know what? I want to reduce certain accounts by a certain percentage. So I can just highlight the accounts that I want and say, I want to decrease them by 30%. I can just quickly go ahead and decrease them, or I can, increase them. Okay. You've got the ability to do that by even numbers, by values, and so forth. We also have the ability to very quickly roll things out. So for example, let me just clear this out. If I want to, enter numbers into that range, I can say, you know what, I want to enter all my numbers evenly, and I want to maybe take $10,000 and spread it evenly. Go ahead and replace, and it'll do that for you. So automatically it'll just fill in those columns for you. Or I may want to do that, for those columns, but maybe add some more fields in here. So just go ahead and replace that, and then it'll replace that 10,000 into those cells. So we can enter information very quickly, and just basically, allow users to decide how they want to enter some of that data. We've also got the ability to do seasonality. So for example, you can do seasonality based on trends, whether your summer's higher or lower, create a winter trend, or you can create as many seasonality trends as you like. Or if I want to do this, I can also base it based on last year's numbers. Let's say I didn't know how my trend was, but I really like the way everything flowed last year. So if I look at this account, last year the number was 25,000. This year I want to make it 30,000. So I can say, just highlight, basically this range here, and I can say, take the range as it was last year, put in 30,000, go ahead and replace it, and automatically it did my allocations based on period. So the goal is not to, to have people enter a number and divide it by 12. The goal is to have people, kind of put in seasonality or whatever trending your business has, just to make the budgeting information a bit more meaningful. You also notice that as I enter my numbers, I've got this visual cues here. And these are really designed to help users ensure that the numbers they enter are within the parameters or guidelines that we offer them. In this scenario, if you remember in our notes or in instructions, we said, we don't want to have any numbers greater than 20% over last year. So what we did in this particular scenario, we said if our numbers are between 0 and 10% of last year, give us a green. If they're between 10 and 20% of last year, give us a yellow. And if they're over 20%, give us a red. So again, as an end user, when they're entering their data, they can see, okay, my numbers are within the guidelines. If they're above it, they'll see that there's a red there, and they either have to address it, or if they want, they can submit it for approval and then let the manager decide what to do. Or if we want to become very strict about this, we can even impose a workflow engine to say, if there's any reds on here, don't allow it for submission for approval, because it's going to get automatically rejected. But that's kind of a business rule that you can design or define for yourself. But we've got the flexibility to do all that. If an end user is kind of worried about or doesn't understand what his numbers are, we've got this validate button that quickly tells them, this number is over by 20%. That's why it's highlighted red. Okay, it's goes on to the next one and so forth. The other thing is this can also be used on reports. So as a manager, if you've got a certain report or if you're approving a budget, you can see very quickly what's outside the guidelines, and they just can focus on that as opposed to focusing on everything that's in green, and then that's okay. Okay, we've also got the ability to attach notes. In Excel, you can attach a note to a cell, but as soon as you merge your cells, those notes disappear. In our world, our notes are attached to this piece of data. So anywhere, the supplies hardware count for the month of January shows up, the notes will follow. And we can have as many notes as you like attached to that piece of data or that cell. As well, we can do attachments to it. So if there's a business case or a backup document or some other scenario that you need to attach, you can attach it to this piece of data, and that will travel with that data. So anywhere the supplies hardware account for the month of January shows up, these notes will follow. If we look at this one, we've got a hardware quote, and what we did, we actually attached a copy of the quote to the note. Okay, we've got the ability to do audit trails. So anytime a field gets changed, we've got the ability to see who changed it, when they changed it, what assignment it was on. So as an end user, if they're entering their data, they can be very comfortable that the number they entered is theirs. If for whatever reason somebody went ahead and changed it, we can always go back and go back to the original number. Okay, so it just gives you a full audit trail, everything that's ever happened in the system, so you know who's changed what and where and which template it was done. Another nice feature we have is a feature called links, and links really allows us to drill down into data. So as we're building our budget, or if we want to compare budgets versus actuals, we may want to take a look at our actual numbers. So what I can do is I can just come over here and I can go to my links and I can say, you know what, show me all the transactions that make up the month of January. And what this is going to do a query into your Sage 300 system or whatever other application you're working with, and bring back certain information. So in this scenario, we brought in, certain GL accounts, tax amounts, who the vendors were, purchase amounts, and so forth. And we brought it back for, a defined range of accounts and a defined time period. Now, once that data is in here, we can start manipulating it. We can say, show me my numbers by, from high to low or from low to high. Or maybe I just want to see my top 10 transactions. Or I want to see what is the total of those transactions. So you can very quickly take some of that data and manipulate it. As well, we can have different views of the data. So for example, I want to maybe sort this by GL account. I want to do an analysis of my account because something doesn't look right. So I want to say, sort this by GL account name and maybe bring in my vendor. So now quickly I can see, okay, what's in my company cars, company meetings, employee training, and so forth, rent and expenses. But I want to go and analyze my supply software account. So I'm just going to go click on that. I can see I've got 5 vendors. So I want to go down to mobile warehouse because I don't remember 2 transactions in there. I can open it up and I can see there's 2 transactions that went into that GL account. One was an office upgrade, which is okay, but there was also a tablet purchase that got posted to the wrong GL account. So as you're building your budget, you can always go back into prior years and take a look at what that data was. Or, if you're a manager and you're comparing your budget versus actuals, you can drill down into the Sage 300 system and see where the transactions came from. Maybe something didn't get posted to the right, department or right account or right period. You can just quickly see as you're doing your budget analysis what's going on. The other thing we can do, we can also export this data out to Excel. So if you want to manipulate the data in some other way, you can just dump that data into Excel and manipulate it. So it's kind of almost like a quick ad hoc query report writing tool that we built into the application. Other things we can do with our links though, is not just integrate to Sage 300, we can integrate to other applications. So for example, if you're doing something with customers, we can tie this into mapping software and show you where all your customers are. If you need to send an email, let's say I need to open up a new GL account, I can say, okay, open up my email and request a new GL account. So I can say, okay, open up a new GL account for the Seattle department for this office. Okay. So with this link, really the whole objective behind this was, any report or any application that allows us to pass, parameters and get data, we can link into and provide a user with whatever information they need to build their budgets. So the whole concept is that if a user is entering a budget, we want to give them whatever information they need to build their budget or to analyze their budget, so they never have to go out of this particular screen. And the nice thing is we're not bringing all this data into TrueSky. Typically, depending on the application, as long as we have access to that data, we can query it, and we don't have to bring that data in. We just take a quick, snapshot of it. Okay. Something else that we also have the ability to add line item detail. For example, employee training. Typically, we manage that at the corporate level, the GL account. But as a manager, I'm building up the numbers. So right now, I've got 2 training classes. If I want to add another training class, I can just go add. And I can type in, quickly, I want to put in training on TrueSky. Say, whatever, $100, $300, whatever. And that'll build up these numbers. Now, anywhere where the employee training account shows up, all this line item detail will follow. So it's, again, everything is consolidated in one place. Other things we can do, we can also do driver-based budgeting. So you can create whatever drivers or whatever parameters you want to be budgeting on and build them into the application. So over here, I've got something on headcounts, and headcounts are actually managing this account here, my kitchen and supplies account. You'll notice this account is locked. Again, it's blue. So if I try and enter something, it doesn't let me. And if I look at the formula, it's just a simple Excel formula that says take row 23 by $75. And this is row 23. So if I change this to 1,000, automatically it will update that number for me. So we can just let people enter, drivers instead of financial information, and that'll drive other financial information. We can have, different models feed other models. So for example, depreciation expense is coming from a capital expenditure model. So again, this data is not being, we can't touch it and change it, but it's feeding my expense model. Okay, so we've got a lot of flexibility, a lot of power. And really what we try to do is make it as easy as possible for an end user to enter or capture data. Once it's saved into the system, then management has access to, all of that data for reporting, for calculations, or to do whatever they need to do. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly just shift gears and show you a little bit of the reporting side. So again, all of our reporting is done in Excel, and in our world, a report to us is a template that is read-only. So the nice thing about that is once you know how to build a template, you know how to build a report. It's the same tool, same everything. We just make the fields read-only as opposed to allow you to edit them. So you only have one tool that you need to learn, and again, it's all Excel-based. So in this scenario here, I've got an income statement for the Seattle office for the corporate department in US dollars. If I look at it, it's just a simple Excel spreadsheet. Over here, I've got everything kind of at a roll-up level. If I expand it out, I'm bringing this by product revenue and then by jail account. So again, you can use some of the Excel functionality to roll things up or roll them down. If I can come across on the top, I've got my actuals and I've got my budgets. So I've got my actuals for the first 4 months and my budget for the rest of the year. So in this scenario, we're basically creating rolling forecasting. And we've got time intelligence built into the system that whenever we close off the month of May, we'll bring in the actuals for May and continue with the budget for the rest of the year. So all that's taken care of for you automatically. If I come across here, I've got my budgets, my variances, and in this scenario, we brought in the actuals for the year prior to that as well. So you can bring in as many columns across as you want. You can have department 1, department 2, department 3, location 1, location 2, location 3. We're not limited just to months. We can have this by months, by weeks, by days. However you want to define your reporting periods, we can do that as well. We also have full access to the drill downs, so the links will work from here. So if you need to drill down from a statement or from a report into transaction details, we can do that. If you need to see the notes will come along as well. Down here we have calculations, and again, these are just Excel formulas for calculations. So we want to take advantage of Excel as much as possible and provide you with the ability to generate pretty well most of the reports that you need. So whether it's an income statement, a balance sheet, cash flows, pretty well any kind of report that you need, we can generate out of the system. Okay. We can also do some dashboarding. So we can create some simple dashboards. And again, in our world, we're using Excel objects. So we take advantage of all the graphs and charts that Excel offers to create our dashboards. So here I've got a dashboard for all my locations, for all my departments, and again, in US dollars. So if I open that up, now, if you are using some other BI tool, our data is available and open to them to use that. But we're finding a lot of our customers are just getting into the dashboarding or the BI world. So they're just using the simple Excel objects, the graphs and charts and so forth. Now, the nice thing about Excel is we can kind of make these interactive and kind of create this for, what if analysis or various different scenarios. So for example, I can say, okay, what would happen if my revenue goes up, increases in May by 40%. So I can quickly see, this was my original forecast. This is my original budget, and this is my new what if scenario. Okay. So now because that happened, I'm going to have to, maybe hire some people. So I'm going to have to increase my compensation, and I'm going to do that in April. I'm going to hire some people in advance, and I'm going to increase that by 10%. And also my expenses are going to go up, and they're also going to go up just in May. Okay, and I'm going to increase those also by 10%. So very quickly I can see, okay, what is the impact on each one of these, dashboards here? Or I can also see, okay, what's going to be the impact on my net income? So I can see, okay, starting in May, my net income is going to increase significantly. So you can create whatever dashboards you want, whatever kind of views, whatever kind of reports you want. You can make them interactive. And again, all you need to do to build these is just have some Excel skills in-house. Somebody that knows how to build graphs and charts in Excel can build these dashboards for your business. Okay, so this gives you kind of a very high overview of some of the functionality of our product. There's a lot we can do with it. This just kind of gives you a simple scenario. Actually, you know what? I may just quickly show you something else, just to kind of show you a different view, since we have a little bit of time here. Compensation is something that a lot of people are using our system for. So I'm going to just quickly shift over and just show you another scenario. So I'm going to go and show you kind of one way that you can do compensation. Okay, so I'm just going to go here to compensation planning. Now this will just kind of be a different kind of scenario. So right now just going up and loading our files. Now this one here is kind of a four-step process. The first thing we're going to do is enter our tax and benefit rates and our calculations, so we can build that ourselves. Then we're going to enter employees and allocate them across multiple departments, and then we're going to calculate the salaries for them. So if I just go over here to my benefits and rates, what you can do is you can configure a table where you put in all your benefits and deductions, and you can have them in multiple scenarios. So we can say my federal tax is going to be at 4% with a yearly max of 40,000. My transit tax is going to be a flat fee per month. My health insurance is going to be a flat fee per period. So you can control all the various benefits and deductions that you have. Okay, so I'm just going to go and switch over to my employee allocation. So what we're doing here is we're taking all of our employees by department, and we're saying I'm going to allocate certain employees to a certain department. So for example, this person here is going to be allocated 60% and 40% to these two departments. This person is going to be allocated amongst 4 departments. If I need to change this, I can just change the allocation. It tells me I'm out of bounds, so I need to just balance it out. Okay. And then the third step in this particular scenario is we're actually going to do all of our wage calculations. So what this will do is typically we'll integrate this to whatever HR system you have, or wherever your HR data is stored, to bring in all of the employees, all the information, the yearly salary, the yearly rates, what benefits and deductions they have, and then we'll actually go and do all of the calculations to create your budget. So right now, just going through all that, building it for us. And then once that data is in there, we can kind of manipulate it to generate our ultimate budget. So for example, we can kind of control when people start, when people end. So this person is going to be working from January till December. This person is going to be working from January till June, but maybe they want to say, you know what, I want to stay until September this year. This person is only going to be working for the summer. We can bring in, how many hours they are, what their current salary is. We can give them a pay increase. We can decide, okay, I'm going to give this person a 5% increase, but their increase is going to start in June instead of everybody else's. So you can kind of control what it does. And then what happens, the system will actually go ahead and calculate, all of their salaries. You can see, okay, this person is only going to work until September. This person is only going to be working for the summer. It'll calculate all of the deductions. So this person maxed out at 40,000, right? So you can basically build your whole compensation budget based on all this. Okay, just a different scenario, a different view, kind of a different way of seeing budgets. Just wanted to give you a kind of a flavor of something else that we can do. But again, as we mentioned earlier, TrueSky can pretty well do most of the things that you need around budgeting, planning, and forecasting. So whether it's financial and operational compensation, sales and revenue expenses, project budgets, production and inventory control, or really, because we're using Excel, we can create whatever structured data we need to capture. So for example, if you need to capture, some additional fields in a structured format, we can do that for you as well, throughout it for approval and so forth. As well, we're reporting and dashboarding and analytics tool. So we can do your consolidated budgets, create presentation quality financial statements, income statements, balance sheets, cash flows, do all your budget versus actual reporting, headcounts, as well as dashboards and KPIs. So really what we've done is we took all of the strengths of Excel, the fact that Excel is very flexible, that you can create pretty well and model any kind of process. It's got a great calculation engine. We took advantage of the presentation layer and the fact that most people out there know how to use it, added a whole bunch of controls. So the biggest thing is we made it database driven. We added workflows, approvals, security, audit trails, the integration to your ERP system or whatever other applications you have, as well as added a whole bunch of productivity tools to turn Excel into an enterprise budgeting solution, where you have one version of the truth, everything's centralized, you've got information you can, that's actionable, you reduce your risk, and ultimately you reduce any surprises. Okay. So with that, really the next steps for us is, we've kind of done a high level demo with you guys, but what we would do is, we would sit down with you and kind of do a more detailed scope review or a more detailed demo. And then ultimately we can provide with a proposal. Are there any questions? That just kind of covers like the high level of our software. So, I just want to open up for any questions if anybody has any questions.
I don't see anything in the chat quite yet.
Okay. Well, if anything does come up, feel free to reach out to your account rep at Pur-Logic, or you can, reach out to us at TrueSky, and we'll kind of work with Pur-Logic to answer whatever questions or whatever needs you have. Some of the more typical questions are, how can we deploy this? Is this a cloud solution or not? We actually provide clients with different options on deploying. They can deploy it in the cloud, on the TrueSky cloud. They can deploy it on premise if that's what they want, or if they have a provider that they're working with, a private cloud, then we can deploy it on there. So we've provided with full flexibility on different ways to deploy our solution. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much, George.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you for your time. And again, feel free to reach out to us or to Pur-Logic, and we'll be more than happy to help you.
Thank you very much. And as mentioned,
Thank you, George.
This was recorded and we'll be able to send it to you as soon as we are sent the link.
Okay, thank you.